Welcome to the Vault Podcast and Reviews, where music still matters. You can check out all our shows at YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and Podomatic. Please rate, review, and most importantly, subscribe. Also, make sure to check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And if you like what we're doing and you'd like to contribute to help us keep the show going, check out patreon.com/thevault. On with your nonsense, but I guess we're just going to start this way.
With my rants. Really, it was just Jessamine ranting about me being emo because she thinks I'm going to love this album.
You got so defensive so quickly. I just said one thing, and then you're worried. You're worried somebody's going to think you're emo, Robbie?
No, I didn't want to be forever emo by tattooing my eyeliner on, maybe just like a once in a while, like a weekend emo is fine, But
and in case you're wondering, we're talking about emo because of this album. Jimmy,
oh, yeah.
Clarity. It's a 1999 release. Robbie apparently has been hit by the emo bug, and he is getting eyeliner tattooed now. So
yeah, the emo bug. I hope it makes me die. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. They would appreciate that.
Yeah,
they would.
That just sounded about as emo as you could get.
Man,
that comment
accidentally happening. So somebody else start this one off. And
this is hard for me too, Jessamine. It's yours.
Okay.
Which is also your request, by the way.
Yes. It was, and I'm so excited about this, especially since both of you gentlemen are so excited about it also. That makes me even more excited. This was, Clarity was Jimmy Eat World's third studio album. Like Zan said, came out in February of 1999. They had a very little-known self-titled album that came out in 94, and kind of their first big album was Static Prevails. That came out in 96, and so Clarity was their third up. As far as how well the album did in general, it was so unsuccessful that Capitol dropped Jimmy Eat World from their label after this album came out.
Oh man!
Listen to Robbie dogging it already.
I'm not dogging it. I was just chuckling to myself,
But here's the thing about this album that I think is very interesting, because very much like we see with movies, they come out, they're not necessarily very commercially successful, and then they develop a massive cult following, and and they become like the biggest deal ever. Clarity was that album for really, and I know this word, it's a loaded word, especially in today's society, but it laid the foundation for emo, and this album specifically is given a lot of credit for that, just as far as what was happening. This was the first album that Jim Adkins of the Jimmy Eat World, this was the first album that he took over lead vocals on all of the tracks except for one. So that was something that the guy who became their guitarist, he had been doing all of their vocals up to that point. So that was kind of a turn for them at that point. But yeah, I mean, that's something else I thought was really cool about this album. Sound City is a studio in California that's had a lot of recent attention because of the amazing mixing board in that studio. Dave Grohl purchased it and then made a documentary about it.
I saw that.
You saw it? Okay, good. Okay.
I saw a picture of the mixing board anyway.
Is it not amazing?
It is.
It is. I mean, it's a true work of art, and that board, that same board that recorded, Nevermind by Nirvana, and that recorded Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, also recorded half of Clarity, and I think that's a neat little fun fact there for you. In my eyes, as far as an overview of this album, and I'd be interested to know what both of you think about this. I think this has a pop sensibility very akin to the Cars. I feel it. I feel that all over every single one of these tracks. What do you guys think about that?
I can see it now that you put it in that perspective. I agree. I have very little notes, so I'll just kind of mention things when I see fit, and I'll turn it back to Robbie with his thoughts on this.
Well, I want to start off by saying it took me 2 times to listen to it. Now, the first time, I will say I was like half asleep, so I did kind of like I just passed out, and it just did that to me. But anyway, so I listened to it second time all the way through. I mean, the first positive thing I have to say is I liked the feel of your new aesthetic. That was a good song.
Did you like, whenever you say you like the feel about it, because I think that song, as far as in general, I could see why, just because I know you, I could see why you would like that, just because that, as far as from a lyrical standpoint, is almost punk rock. But
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you're a punk, Robbie, by any
Right.
means. But as far as Take Back the Radio is the big theme in that song, and that it the line, it takes more than one person, so everyone jump on. We'll miss you when you're just like them. And that whole song is about that. And it was dealing with the radio. It was about, what they were seeing, what now is a reality. They were seeing that start to happen. And it was literally a call to arms for people to request the music that they wanted to hear on the radio. And, it takes everybody. And I dig that a lot about that song.
Kind of like what we're doing right now.
Well, absolutely. I think it very much embodies the exact same spirit as far as where music still matters.
We carry the spirit of Jimmy Eat World with us everywhere we go.
There we go. Emo, both of you.
The emo
Full of
spirit.
emos.
This is what I hear. They start a song and I expect it to like really get to rocking. Like they start to pick up the pace, and then it's like, oh well, we're not gonna rock out instead.
I agree.
It's like dubstep without a drop. It's
not that bad.
So I put some of it, not all of it. And you're right, it's not quite that bad. But that was the best comparison I could think of as far as
comparison.
No, it's a great comparison. It led me to believe there was going to be something major going to happen, and then I kind of felt let down, a few times. And I put it, in some, not all. So it's not.
No, I'm with you on that. I felt the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, Crush was a really nice one. It had a great mix of like hard and then soft, and they did good transition back and forth between it and the music and everything. So that was actually one of my favorite songs on the album was Crush.
I've got 3. Believe in What You Want, For Me This Is Heaven, and Goodbye Sky Harbor. Those 3 stood out to me for different reasons. Why, I don't really know. But it's kind of like any of the other reviews. Some of these songs will just really grab me. I'm all about setting moods, if it's a depressive mood, if it's a rockin' mood, no matter what it is. That's more important to me, feeling the music, than lyrics, than musicianship, than anything. And that's what these did. And then I've got one other really important point, but I'll save that to the end. So, Jessamine, what else?
Question about Goodbye Sky Harbor. Did you both listen to all 16 minutes of it?
I did.
I don't remember a 16-minute song, so I'm going to go ahead and say
it's the very last song.
I probably did not listen to the whole 16 minutes of it, to be honest.
Okay. I'm always interested. There was a period of time when I listened to that song a lot, and I would always, when it just kind of goes into that sonic trip for the end, I kind of would check out. And as I've gotten older, I find myself listening to all 16 minutes of it. I don't know if my attention span has grown or what.
It's almost like meditating. You know what I mean? Like you kind of.
Oh, absolutely.
When we do these reviews, I really find it hard to skip any songs. I don't want to miss anything. So.
True.
Well, and looking at it too, I feel like whenever you're looking at an album, part of the album is the composition from top to bottom, like what we've talked about, and so much of that, and bands that are actually creating albums, I'm sure that they would prefer you to listen to them like that, just because you get a clearer idea of what their vision was to bring to you. Something that I wanted to kind of throw out there and see what you guys thought. There are some really interesting electronic elements throughout their music.
That was my next comment.
Sweet. Because that's something that I really like, because, and I saw it worded in a review somewhere, that those elements do not serve to make the mix epic. They just add that little bit of that little something.
It's like an extra layer of sound.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just something else to catch your ear, you know.
Because
What was it? 12, 23, 25?
Yes.
That was the one that I made note of. Weird electronic stuff right at the beginning. Didn't expect it. It was super cool. The other thing it reminded me of was a coming of age movie, where like, you know, the guy and the girl fall in love when they're young and the guy has to leave. For some reason, I pictured that. Whenever I heard that song, you know, like it should be in one of those movies.
Well, and also too, I mean, it's the day before Christmas Eve, you know, so you have that whole setting of essentially a breakup in the snow.
Yeah, true. Wow.
And
way to paint a picture.
And it's very in classic emo fashion, you know, he in that song, you know, it's just that singing over, you know, Merry Christmas Baby, and you get the idea that that's not a happy time. They're not going to be celebrating Christmas together.
No, not at all. He's probably gonna go home and cry in his skinny jeans, but no, I'm joking.
All right, so what negatives do you have?
I just feel so bored most of the time. Now, given the mood and environment, I might feel different about it, you know what I mean? But like sitting because when I listen to these albums, I sit in my room with the dim light and I just kind of chill. So in that kind of mood, I just felt real bored with it. Like it just didn't grab me. And they kind of, you know, I know they're an emo band, but they kind of need to break the monotony of the topic. You know, like it's like Cottonmouth Kings, you know, all they talk about is smoking weed, and it's kind of the same concept here. You know, and I'm probably being a hypocrite here because I'm sure I listen to hip hop artists that are big crybabies and do that on every album. I think
that has a lot to do with this genre, though. I mean,
no, absolutely.
For the most part, like you could take emo, you could take horrorcore, you could take death metal. For the most part, those genres are going to stick to the same kind of ideas. I mean, every now and then you have something that veers off, which, again, I'm like building up this big finale that's not going to be very exciting, but it's a very important note I want to make at the end of the show. But yeah, I totally agree. And then I also agree it was boring. Like, I'm not going to lie, I started like about 3/4 of the way through the album. I'm like catching myself like falling asleep. Like not because it was bad, but just because it was like this like soft, soothing noise to me almost in the background. And I know like there are songs that are almost a cappella that I've listened to that I was like really into that may on the surface be more boring than some of these, but they would really grab me as opposed to these. They didn't grab me for whatever reason. So Jessamine, here we go.
Oh man. These songs grab me all over.
Ooh.
No, it's
this
so
album's
true.
Getting dirty.
No, and not even like that. I feel like these songs, I will agree with. I'll agree and say that. First of all, I love this album as a whole. That being said, I have a couple of tracks that are incredibly important to me as far as just being influential, and then also looking at their lyrical content, musical content, and the way those things work together, almost in a very emotional symphony of sound. And I would say even three songs, and they go kind of one into the other. But from 10 to Just Watch the Fireworks to For Me This Is Heaven. With those songs, I feel like those songs just, even if you took them completely away from the entire album and then just listened to those three, I look at things from a lyrical standpoint, but the emotional journey that those three songs kind of take a person through has always been really interesting to me, and I loved that those were consecutive tracks in the album. One of my favorite lines is the first star I see may not be a star I love that. I love the imagery of that, and you know, and this is something that I've gotten this a lot. The whole, well, you know, you like that emotional music because you're a girl, and I don't think it's necessarily because of that. Although I do, you know, I do like music, you know, that some might consider quote unquote girly.
So do
But
I.
I find this to be very raw and very vulnerable, and I think that's really the music that I'm most attracted to, and I think that's what brought me to emo in general, is just because I felt like, you know, I was reading someone's journal, and while that can be uncomfortable sometimes, enjoy that experience.
Yeah, I get that. You know, and I can agree. I love when artists does bare their soul. You know, I don't know if I was buying it. You know, from here, maybe that's what it was. Maybe I don't know. Like I said, maybe it's just not my style. And if they sang the same words in a different style that was more my style, maybe it would, you know, change my mind. It would grab me a little bit better than it did.
Was it? I mean, like, was it too? Was it too in the middle per se? Like not as far as from a musical perspective, you know, where the drum's not hard enough, where the guitar's not dirty enough, because that's something too that's very characteristic of a lot of emo bands, because, you know, it was born very much out of post, you know, we're looking at post punk and grunge. Those things kind of together gave birth to emo almost directly, and, you know, with that is, you know, part of that change on the tone of the guitar. There were a lot cleaner sounds, and while they might be playing a pretty hard part, they weren't playing it through a fuzz box. Do you think you would have liked it more if it was more in that kind of a context rather than in the more mellow context? Or
I don't really know.
I have to throw out a factoid. You said, "Is it too much in the middle?" And I just thought of that other Jimmy Eat World song.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, hey.
Yeah. What'd you ask?
Do you? Well, no. I guess my.
Oh, no. Okay, no. It's. I don't think it has anything to do really with it being so mellow necessarily.
Okay.
Because I like mellow music. I don't know, man. Like, you know, I'm a lyric guy too, of course. That's mainly what
I'm the only one that's not here.
So we'll get you on lyrics and Spotify. So, but yeah. So maybe it was just the lyrics, like, and I'm a sappy guy. If you listen to my music, I got some pretty sappy songs. I also like a lot of sappy rappers, but to me, there's a difference between like being sappy and then just like being crybaby-ish, maybe.
Yeah.
Without being too harsh, like I don't want to talk trash, because they're not a horrible band. You know, they're good musicians, and, you know, everything works well for them. But I just, you know, maybe it was lyrical content that got me a little bit, and for some reason, like it just didn't grab me up. Like, you know, some things you hear and they just grab you, and some things just don't as much. You know, I listened to it though. And I didn't trash it.
I'm glad. No, and that's something where it's like I do understand. Obviously, being a fan of, you know, what I consider true emo music, in the sense of Jimmy Eat World, Braid, The Promised Ring. You know, a lot of these very, you know, Sensefield, Mineral, these very early bands. You know, that's something that I do understand that it is not for everyone, and I always appreciate it whenever somebody at least takes a look at it, you know, and just from a different, where it is an album where you perhaps wouldn't pick it up yourself. It is worth a listen. I
would agree.
At the very least.
For sure. I mean, because like you said, I mean, maybe I didn't connect with it, but that doesn't mean that somebody else wasn't going to, you know what I mean? So, I mean, it's art, so I mean, it affects people differently.
Well, and I'm telling you, I'm gonna sell you on emo before this is over, Robbie. We're gonna look at all kinds of this stuff, and you're gonna fall in love, and then we're gonna be crying. We're gonna be crying together.
Fall in love with emo and doom.
Yep, you get you some side sweet bangs, some permanent eyeliner, and we'll just cry about it.
Well, folks out there in the outside the internet world listening to this, I hope you're ready, because we're all about to bring it pretty hard. It sounds like, because Because if you guys are coming at me, then I'll get some on you too that you guys will absolutely love.
Oh, I've already had those, and they were fun.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was just my warm-up pitch.
All right. I'll be ready.
I'm ready for a challenge, and I'm ready to be challenged. That's something
awesome.
that I love it. I love it. It's like, throw me a curveball. Come on, let's do it.
This Jimmy Eat World album was one of the hardest ones that I had to review because I didn't really know what to say about it. You know what I mean? It's kind of how I felt when we did the St. Vitus one. I just don't have I don't know.
A good grasp on it.
Exactly, and I don't know if I'm really willing to spend a whole lot of time like firming my grip, you know, like getting a grasp on it, you know.
Well, it takes some time. I mean, a lot of times you circle back around to these things a year or two later, and they're a totally different thing. Which
I might be in a different point in life, and I may connect with it at that point. And,
yeah. All right, so 1 star being the worst, 5 stars being the best. What'd you give this? Drum roll.
I gave it a 2.5.
Jasmine?
That's not bad.
It's my turn. Okay. I'm going
100 stars?
You know what? I would love to give this 100 stars if I wanted to marry every track all the way down. But I don't. So I'm gonna do 3.5 for it actually.
All right, Robbie, I'm with you once again, 2.5.
Nice, dude.
Here we are again.
Right.
I think overall the album's done very well. No problem really with any of it. It just did not hit me personally. A little boring. The lyrics, I'm not a lyric guy, but obviously I can hear some of them. They don't bother me. Yeah, it might be a little whiny, but so what? But here, this is the big thing. I could see so many elements in this album that I would hear later in bands I absolutely loved that took some of the same stuff when it was then considered screamo with most people. From Autumn to Ashes, Thursday, Poison the Well, those bands, like I was totally into that, and the reason I was is because they were way heavier and way more exciting. But I could see that
where they were born. Like I feel like they would not have had room to, you know, I look at so many bands, like Coheed and Cambria is another one of my favorites, and it's like they would not have had room in the progression of music to exist had there not been this era right here.
Right, and that's one thing that just stood above the whole thing for me. I'm not saying like this is the first ever that turned all these bands onto it,
right?
But it just had this foundation of what they would then build on in 2-3 years down the road. So
there you go. Got to give it up for that. That's awesome. Paving the way.
So
I love that, by the way. Can I just really like everything builds on it on itself. You have to have what has happened to provide a basis of inspiration for what's to happen next, and it's so, I find it so beautiful to see that progression where you can note those little roots of those prior bands in the bands now and in the bands that happen. It's just it's like seeing your family traits in a child, you know, in a kid or a niece or nephew. It's awesome.
It's awesome, and especially when you can pick out like multiple ones. You're like, oh, they're influenced by this person, and this person for sure. Like
and
that's
it's not
That's
even
who they
saying
are.
that they sound like that person. It's just you can tell that influence was there, and I love that. You can
hear it in them. Yep, I agree.
So that up giving this album 3 stars, which is average. I think it's fair.
Hey, that is fair.
I think so too.
I like it.
All right, thanks for checking out the review. Make sure you check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Share everything we post. You know, the more we can get this in front of people, the better. And you can listen to all our backlog shows and all our current shows, YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Podomatic. Check us out at patreon.com/thevault if you want to contribute monetarily to help keep the show going, because it does cost time and money. Until next time, see ya.